This scene right here is not only one of the most iconic moments in the Final Fantasy franchise, but also one of the most iconic moments in video game history. But it's led to some misconceptions involving it. And that's basically what I want to go over in this video, as well as explain how it relates to Rebirth, and whether or not I think Aerith will die in this re-trilogy we're currently in. The first misconception I want to talk about relating to Aerith's death is the story behind how the idea even came about in the first place. There's a myth that series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi's mother died during the development for Final Fantasy VII, which led to the idea of Aerith dying. But in truth, his mother actually passed away in 1988, only a year after the very first Final Fantasy game was released in Japan. So that's long before Final Fantasy VII was even a concept. In fact, the idea for one of the party members to die midway through the game didn't come from Sakaguchi, but instead from FF7 creator designer TETSUYA NOMURA, the man who would go on to become famous or infamous, depending on who you're talking to, for creating Kingdom Hearts. According to a 2017 Polygon interview with TETSUYA Nomura, he stated that the game's theme was life. Killing Aerith was designed to give weight to that theme. Aerith's death was to show how a cunning villain wouldn't leave such an important character alive. Sephiroth is smart, and he knows Aerith stands in his way, so she has to go. The developers fought against the trope of killing off a hero and instead went the way of killing a loved one. Which leads to the next misconception I want to discuss, which there is this notion that Aerith's death was some noble sacrifice. Now, it's important to mention that the characters dying in a Final Fantasy game wasn't necessarily a new concept, but it definitely felt way more impactful compared to what came before it, because it happened so suddenly, and to someone who you wouldn't think it would. Someone like Barrett, who you can definitely see dying in a noble way, but Nomura felt it would have been cliche since it's been done so many times before. Hence is why they chose Aerith and the manner of her death scene. In fact, in the game, along with Aerith's death, Tifa mentions to Cloud. She mentioned to Cloud that she doesn't think Aerith had any intention on dying when she left on her own to go summon Holy, believing that Aerith honestly thought she could get the job done and come back to them, claiming that Aerith would often talk about the next time. She talked about the future more than any of them. Tifa thinks Aerith looked forward to tomorrow in the future more than anyone, which adds an extra layer to why Aerith's death was so damn tragic. Nomura stated that he wanted players to know what it was like to face the unexpected death of a loved one. He also wanted to have a hero whose demise isn't noble. That's a big part of the reason why it's one of the most talked about deaths, and not just Final Fantasy games, but in video games in general. Which leads to the next misconception. Aerith did not need to die in order to summon Holy. Interestingly enough, There's a lot of people who still believe this to be the case, that Aerith needed to die to summon Holy. At some point, I even thought so myself until I watched a well-made, well-thought-out video called "Why Final Fantasy VII Matters," made by Mr. Itchy Ralph, and in it, one of the things he mentioned was this very subject, and he made some very, very good points.
Near the end of the game, Bugenhagen accompanies the party to the City of the Ancients to deign the true nature of Holy, the White Materia, and how Aerith ties into all of it. He learns that Holy, when summoned, will remove everything that's bad for the planet, and it is left ominously ambiguous as to whether or not humans fall into this category. He also learns that the White Materia, when activated, will glow a pale green, and that right there is the smoking gun that proves Aerith did not have to die. In the cinematic in which Sephiroth kills her, a single materia orb, the White Materia Orb, falls from Aerith's hair, and it is glowing pale green. By the time Sephiroth killed Aerith, Holy had already been summoned. The notion that she somehow had to die to summon Holy is proven false by this scene. Now, it is true that Holy does not immediately appear to destroy Meteor after Sephiroth summons it, but this is because Sephiroth is constraining Holy within the lifestream. One can see this quite clearly in the second-to-last battle screen. That white glow? That's Holy. And that red rock thing surrounding it? That's Sephiroth, keeping it from being released. After the party defeats Sephiroth in the lifestream, his ability to contain Holy is broken, and it is released, traveling to Midgar to destroy Meteor, as well as everything else that is bad for the planet. But Holy is not powerful enough to destroy Meteor. The lifestream itself needs to be summoned to aid in Meteor's destruction, and the final shot of the game shows Meteor being torn apart by the combined forces of Holy and the lifestream, while Aerith's face looks on. This can be seen as saying that even if Aerith did not have to die to summon Holy, she did have to die to summon the lifestream. So if she didn't die, humanity never would have been saved. So she's a Christ-like figure after all. But a careful reading pokes some holes in this argument's logic as well. Yet this all belies a more obvious point. If Sephiroth had not constrained Holy in the first place, it would have had much more time to work on Meteor, and probably would have destroyed it. As we see in the ending cinematic, Holy was not released until moments before a meteor would have struck the planet. If not for Sephiroth, the lifestream would not have needed to be summoned. If not for Sephiroth, Meteor never would have been summoned in the first place. If not for Sephiroth, Nibelheim wouldn't have burned down. Cloud's mother never would have been killed, or Tifa's father, or Aerith. Aerith's death was not part of some grand design arbitrated by the fates. She did not sacrifice herself. She was just murdered.
Now, this next misconception kind of hit closer to home for me because this is a popular theory that I remember seeing circulating online, and I even mentioned it in a TS101 post I wrote years ago, like around 2013 or 14. Basically, the theory is that it was Cloud who killed Aerith, not Sephiroth. Sephiroth nearly severely wounded her to the point of paralysis, but due to impaling her spine, but she's still technically alive. Another thing a lot of people like to point out is that dead bodies float. But here in the game, when laid to a watery grave, Aerith immediately sinks. So basically, she didn't die from getting stabbed by Sephiroth, but instead from drowning after Cloud put her into the water and sank her to the bottom. So according to this theory, Cloud had really goofed up by accidentally killing one of his love interests. But in actuality, Yeah, this theory isn't true at all. Dead bodies actually do sink at first. It'll only float after a few days. And as far as the whole thing about Sephi only paralyzing her since he supposedly stabbed her in the spine, you guys gotta remember something. This cutscene came from a video game that came out in 1997. The animators at the time could only do so much with what they had at the time when developing this game. Hell, if you rewind the scene, you'll even spot a technical mess-up. So when Sephiroth is diving to stab Aerith, he's wearing no gloves. But just right before he lands and deals that fatal blow, he's wearing them. So either this is a mess up on the animator's part, or Sephiroth's super quick at putting on his gloves, or should I say, Shinovaroff. Wait, Shinovaroff? Some of you might be asking. I'll explain that in another video. Now that we've gotten to the part of the video to where I explain how this relates to Rebirth and possibly the third game in the FF7 retrilogy, well, before I answer the question of whether or not I think Aerith will die in Rebirth, I wanted to go over and evaluate the original Aerith's deaths, as well as debunk some major myths surrounding it. Well, having done all that, I would like to think that some of you guys have a better understanding of Aerith's death and why it was such an impactful moment for a lot of gamers. Well, going over all the points I made in this video, I think it's time to give my theory as to what the retrilogy might have in store for you guys in terms of Aerith's fate. As I stated earlier, OG Aerith didn't need to die in order to summon Holy. In fact, by the time Sephiroth had stabbed her, Holy was already activated. Now, keep that in mind, folks, for later on. Ever since Remake got released back in 2020, there's been a lot of theories surrounding it, as well as the upcoming titles. It's been heavily implied that both Aerith and Sephiroth are aware of future events, or in other words, aware of events from the 1997 game. Because of this, as well as the fact that Square Enix decided to title the second game Rebirth instead of simply Remake Part 2, it has led to multiple people, including me, to speculate that this is no longer just a remake, but a sequel. Not in the traditional sense. In a sense, we are getting the same story, or at least the same premise, but not really. A lot of the same events in the story might still happen, but under different contexts. Despite stating multiple times in various interviews that the devs are trying to make the retrilogy for both fans of the OG and newcomers, Square has already spoiled major plot points like the truth behind the Nibelheim incident or Cloud never joining Soldier, with not only some scenes and dialogue in Remake, but also with the fact that they chose to release the Crisis Core remaster and re-release the Advent Children movie to theaters before the release of Rebirth. Now, a lot of you might be asking, why would they do that? Well, I think it's because instead of just relying on these old plot points as plot twist, the devs are probably coming up with new plot twist for this remake trilogy they're working on. So this is sort of a reboot / sequel. This could just simply be a reimagining of the FF7 story and nothing more. But with all the points I just made, I feel like that might not be the case. This past September, Tetsuya Nomura, who also directed the remake and Advent Children, said that the remake trilogy will eventually link up to that film. Now, if we were just to take that statement at face value, he basically spoiled the whole trilogy. Because in order for Advent Children to happen, then Aerith needs to die, and no significant change will happen. Certain events will differ, but ultimately everything will have the same result, which honestly does kind of make things less interesting. Because I was under the impression that we defied fate by the end of Remake. Now, I'm fine with certain important events staying intact, but if there's no major changes, then that does kind of take away some of the hype that the devs had built up at the end of the first game, you know? Not to mention, it makes all the theory crafting fans have been doing since playing Remake kind of obsolete. Also, again, why would Square re-release Advent Children right before Rebirth? That's why I'm choosing not to take what Nomura said in that interview literal. Because look, it's already been confirmed that Remake is the ninth title of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. So if I were to think outside the box here, what he could be saying that the re-trilogy is indeed connected to Advent Children, just not in the way some of us are thinking. Just like we later realized that after playing Remake that there was a double meaning behind the title, Sephiroth remaking the timeline. So I think that's what's going on here, is that if the theory that we're either dealing with a time-traveling Sephiroth from the future or simply a Sephiroth that somehow knows, that has knowledge of events all the way up to Advent Children is true, then what I said about this being sort of a reboot as well as a sequel holds up even more weight. Basically, the events of the 1997 game as well as its 2005 sequel film has already happened, but in an entirely different timeline / universe from the one we're currently in. Now, I said all of that to say that there's a very good reason why people are wondering if there's a possibility that Aerith might not actually die this time. If this is a Sephiroth who does know things the original Sephiroth didn't, then it only stands to reason that he's going to go about things very, very differently to not make the same mistakes as before. Some speculating that since this Sephiroth knows what led to his defeat in the OG timeline, then he'll probably won't kill Aerith, since killing her is what eventually leads to his defeat. Because when her soul is in the live stream, she manages to command the live stream to stop the meteor or whatever. But here's the thing, and this leads to the final misconception I want to debunk when it comes to Aerith's death. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Aerith dying is not what activated Holy. So this notion that Sephiroth messed up by killing Aerith is false. If anything, the only thing he messed up on here is that he not killing Aerith sooner. Because by the time he did stab her, she had already prayed for Holy to stop Meteor. Also, keep in mind the fact that even though she did summon Holy, Sephiroth was blocking its power, and it couldn't emerge to stop Meteor. It was only after Sephiroth's defeat at the hands of Cloud's party that allowed Aerith to release Holy, though Meteor had fallen too close, and Holy's energy was unfocused by its gravity. Within the livestream, Aerith commanded the livestream itself to emerge from the planet and push Meteor back, allowing Holy to focus its energy. Holy in the livestream destroyed Meteor and saved the planet. So, if Aerith hadn't summoned Holy, I don't think commanding the livestream would have been enough to stop Meteor. So, theoretically speaking here, Sephiroth can still kill Aerith and not worry about the consequences. So no, I don't necessarily think Aerith is safe from Sephiroth's blade. But this is all under the assumption that Sephiroth still plans to summon a meteor upon the planet and absorb the live stream's energy to become a god. Because that's the thing, we don't know what Sephiroth's endgame here is. It could be the same as before, or it could be something entirely different. In one of the trailers, it seemed that Sephiroth wants to merge the timeline where Zack is still alive in with the timeline Cloud's party is in, but we don't know for what purpose. With that said, Aerith has knowledge of future events as well, so she could potentially stop things from happening that it did originally. She might not even need to summon Holy if we can manage to stop Sephiroth from even using the black materia this time. She could somehow prevent her own death. But for some reason, I don't think she'll do that. If anything, I think her goal here is to just stop Sephiroth from having his way, and to also figure out a way for the story not to end exactly the way it did. Because even though Sephiroth was defeated and the planet wasn't destroyed by meteor in the original game, it's heavily implied that in the distant future, humanity did eventually go extinct, probably due to the will of the planet. After all, it could be interpreted that the planet might deem humans as a threat due to all the years of Shinra literally sucking the planet's life out with Mako and the people relying so much on it. So maybe Aerith wants to prevent humanity from going extinct somehow, which means she's probably in opposition to both Sephiroth and the planet, just not in the same way Sephiroth is to the planet. So preventing her own death might not be such a high priority on Aerith's part. However, I can see the story trying to give us hope that maybe we can save her. One of the things that makes this new direction so exciting is that we have no idea what's going to happen. If some of the same events will happen or not. Some probably will, and some probably won't. Aerith's death is no longer 100% guaranteed now. With that said, I understand the importance and significance that scene has had on not just the story, but gaming as a whole. And what Square is probably trying to do is give us that false sense of security, make us think that we can prevent it from happening. But ultimately, it does happen, proving that some things just are fated to happen no matter what, which I think will be a brilliant move on the devs' part. Now, I don't see myself getting upset like some OG fans will if they choose not to kill Aerith. Instead, for me, it really depends on the new story they're trying to tell and how well it's executed. The fact we're already getting glimpses of her death is like the devs are trying to either give us despair by reminding us what's gonna happen and having us prepare for what is probably the inevitable, or giving us hope that we can prevent it from happening now that things have changed significantly. But if it turns out to be false hope, then it'll definitely make her death even more painful, which might ultimately be the devs' goals. Those bastards. So, in conclusion, I do think ultimately Aerith is destined to die. Even though the most recent trailers seem to tease it. I think Aerith will die, but that won't be the oh my god moment the Square devs have been teasing us in these interviews. Her 1997 death is one of the most well-known deaths in gaming history. You don't have to be a Final Fantasy fan to know that she dies. Hell, thanks to the internet, I was spoiled years before I was even interested in FF7. So I can see them making her death scene different, but I don't think that will be the shocking moment that'll leave us talking for years leading up to the third game. We'll be getting the Aerith death scene, but I'm certain we'll be getting some other crazy shit happening at the end of Rebirth. So along with Aerith, there is another character fans have been speculating that Sephiroth could be targeting this time around. But we'll just be discussing that in another video. Oh boy. So comment below and let me know what you guys think. You think Aerith's going to survive, or you think she's going to die? And let me know why. Now, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and most importantly, hit the notification bell to be notified for whenever I do post these videos. And with that said, stay beast.
Everyone dies eventually.
I suppose.
So we need to make the most of the time we have. To live our lives the way we want to live. Every minute, every moment matters.
I'll remember that.
Good.